I kind of wanted to touch on a topic that's a little deeper, a little more on the sensitive side, rather than just talking Cowboys all the time. Well, I wouldn't say sensitive, but just it's something I used to really try to study without studying it, if that makes sense. And what I'm talking about is the psychology behind sports, the psychology behind getting yourself into that zone and how much you separate yourself from the rest if you learn how to do it on command. What I mean by that zone is what's called flow. When an athlete gets into a zone where in basketball, all their shots are dropping. In football, you got perfect passes. Everything you practiced just feels like second nature. Everything that usually takes a little more effort or a lot of times maybe a little more difficult just comes easy for a little stretch. Some athletes, multiple games, weeks, for the great ones, months. But there's a psychology behind that, especially for those who always seem to tap into this zone on command, like a Tom Brady in the fourth quarter, a Michael Jordan, a Kobe in the fourth quarter. A big example is that LeBron Game 6 versus Boston in 2013. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it in how he was walking. I remember my dad, who was a huge Heat fan at the time. All Heat fans should have been nervous going into that game, and I'm sure my dad was also. I, as a LeBron hater at the time, I was rooting all the way for Boston to close that series out. The moment my dad saw the look in LeBron's eyes before that game, he couldn't stop laughing. He knew it was over. This is a guy who had watched every single LeBron game that was televised. So he knows what LeBron usually looked like. And there was something in his eyes before that game that told my father from the get-go, this is about to get real, real ugly. And what's LeBron do? He comes out 8 for 9. 8 for his first 9. I think that was the first quarter. 8 for his first 9. I'm talking about fadeaway jumpers. This was before LeBron really had a jumper. Fadeaway jumpers and ones, not making any facial expressions unless he was looking pissed off. There's a psychology behind this. And I feel that I have narrowed it down to a T. It all comes down to anxiety. For a long time in my Instagram bio, I had anxiety fuels superheroes. Embrace anxiety. Anxiety fuels superheroes. Embrace anxiety. That doesn't mean just allow it to dominate your mind. But if you can figure out how to just allow the right dosage of anxiety to flow through your veins, just give you that spark, you can really hack life. It's a cheat code. It's a cheat code. It's the same way in The Incredible Hulk, for example. He's a regular guy. Until he turns angry. But see, to the casual watcher, you just feel, oh, he has to get upset. He has to get angry. It's not anger alone that the Incredible Hulk would feel. Anger may have been involved, but it's not anger. It's that nervousness that we feel before a big moment that we try to get rid of. It's that anxiousness. It's that fear of failing. It's that fear of the worst. All of those things combined into one. That can make or break some people. Spider-Man. What's he say? My senses are tingling. Let's translate that to the real life. It's not tingling senses. That's anxiety. That's your gut telling you something. That's a feeling you get. He's super tapped in to his senses. Us as humans, some way better than others, but we can tap into our senses. When it's go time, we can tap into that zone if we learn how to do it. And the greatest athletes have learned how to do this. This is something that I struggled with as a player, where the night before the game, I could be in my room with my headphones on, and I'm feeling like Khalil Mack, and I'm feeling unstoppable, and I feel like, man, can't nobody stop me. Tomorrow I'm going to be so pumped. I'm going to be so pissed. I'm going to hit everything. And then it's like I would like burn out all my energy the night before. Because when I was in that locker room, I promise I was never scared. But there was just something that felt like a block. It wasn't letting me tap into that hype zone. I wasn't able to tap into that zone, not even as a little kid when your imagination is the brightest. I always felt like me on the field. I never was able to get myself to go out there and feel that rush of energy during the game. On one condition. On one condition. If I get pancaked, if I get rocked, if someone calls me out my name, if I feel disrespected out there on that field, and someone pushes that right button, in my mind, I wouldn't know that it was go time. I could feel it in my body. My arms would get really warm. I get super calm. The field would start to feel like my bedroom, whereas I was just so comfortable. Nothing made me nervous. Nothing felt impossible. And I'd almost want to thank whoever did it to me. Whoever pushed that button, whoever gave me that sense of embarrassment, I had to thank them inside because I knew, thank you. Now I can get to what I came here to do. Now we can get going. I kid you not. If I was to put on my highlight reel, I promise you some of my best plays came directly after some of my most embarrassing plays. Whenever I would screw up, I would have my best play immediately after. I would waste no time. I'm talking immediately after. Next play. Because that's how I responded. And I was never able to get myself to get into that zone consistently. I call that a red flag. That's a red flag of mine as to why I should have known maybe being a professional football player is not my route. Because I could have been a way different player had I learned how to tap into that zone. But I had to get embarrassed. I had to screw up, get yelled at, get, hit really hard. And that would snap me into that fight or flight mode. But I tell you what, I would feel that ball of energy, that combination of nervousness, failure, fear, hoping you didn't waste your time with all the training, hoping you're not going to get disappointed by the outcome of the game, hoping that in 2 hours I'll be happy. I felt all that. And personally, I started to hate that feeling. And once I started to hate that feeling, I knew I was done. I knew I was done when before the games, I would actually say to myself, I hate feeling like this. I hate feeling like the next 2 hours defines my whole existence as a person. I hate feeling like if I don't go out there and perform and produce highlights and start, my existence as a person is smaller than what it is. And once I started having those thoughts, I knew I was done. Because the great ones, the greatest, they don't have those thoughts. I'm sure they have those thoughts, but those thoughts, they still spark a fire in them. That's why there's a big joke about Michael Jordan taking everything personal. You got to take things personal. You got to take things personal. When you have a big category, a big bank of things to get upset about, then as soon as that coach comes in and says 10 minutes until kickoff, okay, I got it in the bank. Let's go. I can tap right in. I got things that have been bugging me all week. I can tap into this now. Now I can take it out. Maybe they hear something in the news that past week. Maybe somebody told them they weren't good enough. Your ability to think of these things and have them make you instead of break you can change your success in sports so great, it's insane to think about. There are some people who the only reason they went pro is because they had the motivation of doubt. Haters. There's people who their main motivation are the haters, the doubters. In life, we always focus on mental health, or we're starting to focus on mental health and ways to think and not being too hard on ourselves. As athletes, we have to know there's a difference with us when it comes to our athletics. We have to have our athletic mindset, and then we have to have our daily life mindset. We can't just follow the same mental health tips that the everyday person might receive. If an athlete gets too focused on gratitude and not listening to the doubters, they may not work as hard as they need to work. They may not go fix the criticism they receive as much as they need to fix it. As an athlete, you have to feed on criticism. All these things combined create the great ones. You have to know how much to let things bother you, how much to let yourself feel anxious, how nervous you need to feel, what kind of fear you need to have. Fight or flight is the hack to the psychology of sports. If you can learn how to activate that fight or flight response on cue, you will see what you can really achieve on a field, on a court, in any sport. Controlled aggression, fight or flight response. Those kind of things. They always say if you go out and try to lift a car right now, you're not going to be able to lift it. But let your mother or somebody be under that car. You're going to go over there and probably flip that car. You're going to push that car off. That's because your adrenaline is being released. There are some athletes who know how to tap into their adrenaline and release it at certain times. You don't think these NFL guys, when they're housing these kick returns, you don't think that they got adrenaline pumping through their body? Even something as small as the game Capture the Flag with your friends. You get that flag and you're trying to run back to the other side. You're running a lot faster than you would run if someone said, hey, go out and run a sprint. You got to know how to use your brain to your advantage. And by focusing on not being nervous and ignoring anxious feelings, you're just cheating yourself. Unless you truly know yourself and you know it'll eat you alive, then you're cheating yourself. And if that's the case, then work on how to let things bother you just enough. How to let things bug you just enough to get you out of bed at 6 a.m. to go work out. How to let things bother you just enough to, when you're hitting those weights and you feel that burn and you think you got 1 rep left, it gives you 2 more reps. Learn how to let things bother you that much to the point that you get the best out of yourself. It's time we stop using anxiety as such a bad thing. Feeling anxiety is your senses. Those are your Spider-Man senses or Spidey senses. Those are your superpowers trying to tell you something's off, something's wrong. You deserve better than this. You can fix this. You can do this. If you let yourself feel anxious during every workout, I promise you, you're going to get the best workout you can get. Go in that weight room and be scared to fail. Be scared to lose. Be scared to stay the same size. Be afraid to let the pain of the reps stop you. You'll start to feel the difference. You'll look in the mirror after that set, you won't even recognize yourself. You'll have a different look in your eye. That's fight or flight. That's your brain tricking your body into thinking that it's life or death. Trick your brain into thinking that it's life or death every time you lift, every time you get on that field, every time you get on that court. It's life or death out there. Give yourself that adrenaline and then control it. Do what you've practiced. Use that controlled aggression or controlled anxiety, dare I say. Use that to your advantage. When you learn how to combine what you've practiced and what you've learned, and combine that with your controlled aggression and controlled anxiety, you will reach the peak. You will reach the peak. The best offseason I ever had, I was heartbroken and terrified to lose my scholarship. Our coach had us all convinced, hey, I'm bringing in straight dogs. I don't care who was on this team last year. You guys had an awful record. I'm bringing in dogs. Our coach came in and pulled the Deion Sanders 3 years before Deion Sanders did what he just did. Our coach came in there and told us straight up, I'm bringing in dogs. And if you don't think you can handle it, leave. I felt pretty comfortable with my roster spot, but I had a goal in mind. I wanted to dominate. I wanted to go to the league. If I would have known that I was not going to the NFL, I would have stopped playing years ago. I had a dream. And I know that in college football, there's competition. You have to work for your starting position. You don't get to just be the biggest, best-looking athlete and start. So I had this fear of somebody taking my glory, this fear of somebody taking my spot. I went through a breakup. I lost my puppy. I was down bad, man. I was down bad that summer. And you can ask anybody around me. I woke up at about 5:30, 6 a.m. every morning, went straight to that gym, grinded for about 2 hours, came home, then had an on the field workout afterward. And then I would rest, and then I would go delivery drive for Papa John's in a car that did not have working power steering. That's what I did. That's how scared I was to not have a good football season. It gave me the energy to do that every day. And I haven't been able to do something like that since. But the great ones do. It's not meant for everybody.